like the eighth episode. Oh yes. All right. Let's just. I think this is also the last episode, depending on how much. Oh
But this detail does tie back into my thesis as well. As I've said before, Savika is one of the show's most leftist characters, and she is also one of the show's least understood. And there are at least two, but more than likely at least three, reasons for this. First is that Arcane itself barely knows what it's doing with her, and that was most obvious in season 2. Second is that they had her turn against Vander and had Vi, our follow along character, regard her as a traitor, which Savika both is and is not, depending on your perspective.
my god. Mm.
And third is that she's a South Asian masculine woman, so no comment. The thing about Savika is that she is committed to Zahn's liberation, the idea of and reality
Ah, South Asian. So she means by that Indian. Yeah, maybe yeah, but her design is they really made her design from the voice actor. Like many people just say, "Oh, the voice actor looks like just like Savika." That's probably because they made character on the basis of her voice actor. Um, they say they did it with some other characters, so Savika makes sense because she isn't in the games. She's just original character made by the show. But yeah.
of it. She is not loyal to people, she is loyal to that idea. That is why she both is and isn't a traitor. Season 1 did show this, but in my opinion, it did not show it well enough. The first scene we see of Savika is her giving Vander one last chance to prove himself to her, and he failed. But we never get Savika's point of view, so this is something you have to pick up on. If you don't, then she just seems like a traitor since we're of course meant to like Vander. Savika betrays
It's never like said that we supposed to you know not that we supposed to like Vander, but that we supposed to see Sevika as a traitor. I did not see. I now do not see Sevika as a traitor after watching the show for like 4 times, and definitely not after season 2. When you we see that she's actually pretty good, pretty much a good guy in that season, which is again just so cool with just season 1 having season 2 having like switch the character so that the good characters are no bad and bad characters are no good. So yeah, anyway, um they just I don't think I've seen Savika as a traitor, mainly because I didn't remember her, but like on my second rewatch I still did not see her as a traitor. um so yeah.
Vander for Silco because she believes Silco will do what Vander could not by making Topside respect the Undercity. In her eyes, Vander has already betrayed the Undercity.
Mm.
As I've already demonstrated, this is not a perspective the show shares, which is why Savika is doomed from the beginning. Like Silco, Savika is villainized. And the problem with Savika is that the show doesn't give us enough of her for us to know what her politics are. To me, especially when season 2 rolls around,
Yep. Especially when season 2 rolls around, like
she seems like someone who genuinely cares about Zahn and its people. But then the fact that she participates in flooding the streets with Shimmer doesn't make enough sense, because that is something done by Silco, a person who acts out of fear and hate. While this could mean that my interpretation of Savika is wrong, which I fully acknowledge it could be, I choose to think of this as a symptom of the show failing to truly engage with revolutionary politics once again. Since it's already so busy demonizing revolutionary politics in the first place, how could it even pretend to understand the intricacies of politics born out of hate versus those born out of love?
wait, so you say well, so you say that revolutionary politics comes not out of hate but out of love? The politics that say to kill all the bourgeoisie, to kill all other, to kill all of them, are born from love. Like, just read about any revolution, and yeah, you will just realize that what you say is it's a complete bullshit.
I just simply do not have faith in the show to understand that. I also believe that if the show had actually been invested in giving political commentary, Savika would have had a much larger role. That she didn't was just another sign that the show would be going in this centrist direction, a sign that was then proven to be true once season 2 premiered. Because, other than Vi, Savika is probably the character failed most directly by the show's commitment to centrism. In season 2, she attempts to rally Zahn's people together, but she's not much of a leader. This plotline is dropped, and the next time we see her, she's leaving the council room after Jace's bullshit speech. And then she's with the rest of the Zahnites who came to Piltover's aid because we don't know why. And then her
Because the world was ending. Okay, I already told to tell why.
ultimate ending is she gets a seat on the council where she looks deeply unhappy, and the rest of the council look at her in disdain.
You again misunderstood this thing. This is like, you know, she looks unhappy because actually I don't know why. But like, this is still she just assumes things without getting a proper, um acknowledgement from what happens in the show. So yeah.
And this is supposed to be a good ending? Either the writers forgot or didn't care that Savika can and probably will be voted out by the other members of the council.
So you are just assume. So when why you assume stuff? So when the stuff is you know what I mean, right? All right. I already debunked that. So
Somehow, Savika, one of the people most vocal about liberation for Zahn, has become a liberal without any time spent on this whatsoever. Zahn here is not liberated in any possible way.
zone, yeah, zone here is not liberated because I think you confuse the word liberation with something else. Because like liberation does not always have to do like liberation. This is depends on what you see. The Zonite people are liberated because the enforcers, let's be honest, if they still are in the lanes, they treat Zonanites the same, like they did in the same as Piltovans, like they did in that alternate timeline that Echo visited. Um, so she doesn't join, Piltover doesn't oppress Zone. We have basically the same ending. Basically, the ending establishes the same situation as in the alternate universe that Echo and Jaime ran in episode 7. So that's it basically. Yeah.
My assumption is that Arcane is trying to have us believe that Zahn is on the path to becoming the Zahn of the alternate timeline in Season 2, Episode 7, but as I already explained in my section covering Echo, that is liberal bullshit that makes no sense.
But as I explained in the previous section, I I just don't think this is possible, so it didn't happen. Um, that's like the best feat. She just says, "I don't think that could happen, so it didn't happen. It never happened. No matter what the show shows me, I won't believe it. I'm just going to la la la. I don't hear you."
What? Mel? Yes, Mel too is failed as a character by Arcane's commitment to centrism, albeit in a more indirect way than some of the characters I've discussed so
Really?
far. There were many interesting things about Mel in season 1, but one of them was that she was easily one of the most decent people on the council. What made Mel interesting when it came to the Piltover and Zahn conflict is that unlike other Piltovians espousing the abstract liberal idea of peace that only applies to protecting their own asses, Mel is an actual pacifist who is committed to peace because she has seen war, being from the war-hungry nation of Noxus, with the General Ambessa as her mother, with whom
Oh,
she
so
has
when Mel sees war and is a pacifist, then it's good. When Jay sees war and is a pacifist, is bad. Makes sense to me.
a strained relationship. This, of course, is still a piece that rests upon the exploitation of Zonites, which is something that Mel appears to accept,
The exploitation of Zonanites by Zonanites.
perhaps because she has only ever seen war from the side of the victors. She votes for the peace proposal at the end of season 1, taking off the ring designating her as a Medarda, which is meant to represent her casting aside her family legacy to commit to peace. But again, as I've already said before, this peace is merely one for Piltover, not for Zahn, who would struggle under Silco's rule. What season 1 did was provide a setup for a season 2 where Mel actually was forced to contend with her complicity with Piltover's oppression of Zahn, something that could have come in the
At least not that much as she frames it did. So
aftermath of the attack against the Council. Mel is the richest person in Piltover. She benefits from Zahn's exploitation, and while her desire for peace is not nearly as self-absorbed as other Piltovians, it could have been very interesting for Mel to contend with what peace really means and what she is willing to sacrifice to have it, a mirror and foil to the kind of rhetoric we've heard Vander say about what you're willing to sacrifice in war. Of course, season 2 never followed through on any of this, because that would require the show to actually want to make left-leaning political commentary. Instead, after she gets to pay a little lip service to her well-known stance on peace and diplomacy, Mel is completely removed from the Piltover and Zahn's setting. This is a mistake that also was one of the contributors to Mbessa's plotline falling flat. Mel is instead given a plotline that is absolutely devoid of any political commentary whatsoever, which is a complete disservice to her character and everything she represented in season 1.
well, yeah, I honestly think that it isn't the fault of the writers, because I also did not like Mel's plotline. Like, it's objectively the worst plotline in the whole of Arcane. Mel's plotline in season two, not in season one. Um, but I think that Riot just wanted them to have this character for the next season in Noxus. So they basically said to Christian and Amanda, "Hey, let's change Mel's plotline fundamentally," and then they did. I hate. Okay, no, this is not why I hate. It's not the video why I hate Mel's plotline in season two. This is and I still love all everything else in season two. Genuinely, I just loved. So yeah, like season one. So yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think that at least if you're mad about that, you can just say it on the studio. And I still think that this is like the best they could do of this plotline. You know, and this is the best that the plotline would go. With the studio interference like that. So
This is one of the few instances where I can't even say that the show was telegraphing this trajectory in season 1, because even though we did see her glowing magic at the end of season 1, Mel's plotline comes completely out of left field. And Bessa telling Mel that her brother was killed after crossing the wrong man just turns out to be an entire lie, which just feels like wasted dialogue. Mel's mage heritage is only hinted at in literally the final 5 seconds of season 1. Her setup is abandoned because she became a League of Legends champion, and her character was simply a teaser for all the Noxus content we'll be getting in the future, I guess. Mel's sidelining is even more egregious when you consider how the big bad of the show, in a way, was Hextech, the very thing that Mel played a large part in developing and spreading, even if she wasn't on the science end of it. Now, in this case, Mel was sidelined because the show couldn't stop itself from leaning into the disposable black girlfriend trope, and none of this has to do with the politics of the show, other than the fact that when Zahn and Piltover was abandoned, so was any hope for Mel getting a good storyline. Hoo boy, where do I even begin with Victor?
we got Victor. We have Victor. We finally. I came to this moment where I'm going to, this is maybe the criticism I agree with. This could be, um, yeah. Just let's see. I don't know what honestly before us. So
I never had any strong feelings about Victor as a character, but the way season 2 did him made me very angry. Another character assassinated by the show's centrist narrative, Victor ends up being our big bad. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start with Victor in season 1, since I haven't talked about him at all yet. In season 1, Victor is an idealist who wants to improve the lives of everyone using technology, specifically Hextech. We don't actually learn that Victor's from the Undercity until episode 6, but we get hints towards it, such as his dedication to help people in the Undercity specifically. There is very little to say about Victor in the ways of the show's centrist politics, in season 1 that is. There are small things, though.
I love how she just shrugs it off that what he does is really leftist in season one. So yeah, she just la la la. I don't hear you.
For example, in episode 4, when Jace and Victor are showing off the inventions they've come up with to help miners in the fissures do their jobs, one might ask why wouldn't they invent anything to help with the fumes from the fissures? Victor would know that that is a problem. Because of how small of a detail this is, half of me believes that the writers did not consider it, while the other half thinks that maybe it was because, as these are inventions to be shown off to investors, Victor at least knew that no Piltovian would be buying something to improve the life quality of Zonites, but would only care about their work productivity.
What?
But again, even if we do make this interpretation, Arcane never showed it, and we have to think about why that is. If the writer
I remember that she also did something like this before. So um, yeah, she's just going to assume it without anything to go off of.
did not consider
Just it's not shown in the show, so we have to assume it's true. Why? If it's not shown in the show, it
it, then that would indicate a lack of engagement with their own setting. If they did think of this, but still chose not to show it, then that would
also
mean that they found
how would Hextech, all right? How would Hextech uh, improve air quality?
it to be an irrelevant detail to include. For a detail like this to be irrelevant, I can only assume that means that they did not want to show Piltovians being unconcerned with the quality of life in Zon. Once again, Piltover is distanced from its exploitation of Zon. But of course, a lot of what I just said here is
Doesn't exploit zone. It doesn't care about zone.
conjecture, so you can take it all with a grain of salt. Season 2 removes Victor from the political context that leads him to become who he is in that season, and that is where many of the problems begin, at least when it comes to what little the show gives us of the Piltover and Zon conflict in Season 2. Everything that leads Victor to becoming the big bad is Piltover's fault. Victor's terminal illness is because of the Grey, which is a byproduct of Piltover's industry in the fissures. Victor set up a commune in the former home
Piltover's industry, no, it's actually a fault of Zononite industry in the fissures. It was Zononites who were, you know, exploiting Zononites, other Zononites.
homeless encampment because of Piltover. Remember, Zon hardly has any medical treatments, and with Shimmer gone, Victor is all they have. And remember that Vi directly implied that the homeless encampment specifically is the fault of Piltover. Hell, Victor fucking died in Jinx's attack against the Council, an attack that was because of Piltover, despite what the show wants us to think.
Yeah, yeah, girl. 9/11 was because of, but was because of the United States, not because of Osama bin Laden, but because of fucking George W. Bush. Okay, not George W. Bush, but because of fucking Bill Clinton. I just love this. Like, this is basically what she said.
And despite the fact that Victor creating the commune is inherently a political act, it is never treated as such. Victor's thoughts on doing this are never explored other than some vague Jesus allegory bullshit. He doesn't do it because Zon is his home and it has been mistreated.
It isn't Jesus allegory. It's just Victor being Victor. Watch the show. I know that you said that you didn't really care about Victor's character, but like, uh, it was basic. It was just his goal to make everyone happy. So yeah, him going to zone makes sense because he knows that in zone people suffer, and him establishing the commune also makes sense because making people's lives better was his goal from you know was his goal in life.
Treated, he does it because there are people there who need help. The role of Piltover in creating this problem is not mentioned whatsoever, unlike in Season 1, where Vi at least points this out to Caitlin. But lines like that feel cheap.
Okay. No, I think she says. I think what she means. I don't remember when she said it. Maybe she did. Maybe she did. Don't get me wrong. But I think that she means the moment when Vi says to Caitlin that these are the people that Piltovans ignore, not that Piltovans made, but ignore. And I think this is what she means, and that means that what she says is wrong. Still, I may be wrong, alright? Yeah.
When we never get any follow up action, it's just paying lip service. Piltover created the final villain out of Victor, just like how Mbessa was only a threat because of Piltover's treatment of the Undercity, and the show never ever addresses this in any way.
How was Ambessa a threat because of Piltover? Oh, no, no, like genuinely. Why was Ambessa a threat? Because of it, because of the Undercity. Why? I don't understand what you're talking about.
Instead, we get this bullshit we're all one people type of speech from Jace, and Zahn ends up turning the tide to win the war. Piltover is never forced to deal with the consequences of its own actions. It wins the war, it remains in power, they lose absolutely nothing at the end of
It doesn't remain in power. Power is shared. I know that it's shown poorly, and I think they should add more people to the council. But it's implied, and it will be peace. God.
the show. Frankly, I'm not convinced that the people behind the show even thought about Piltover's role in creating Victor, unless they were trying to go for some bullshit like we both created this villain with Piltover being the impetus and Zahn's only contribution being that Victor is a Zahnite, but I'm gonna hope that the writers would not go for something that horribly offensive. Even I think that is a rather uncharitable reading of the situation.
How did Piltover make Victor? I'm honestly asking you. Because they just ignored the problems of the Undercity, or is it just like Jace technically made it? And Victor, because
Another aspect of Victor that in the end screams of the show's centrism is that the final villain is a hive mind. Western media hates the idea of a hive mind because it conflicts with the individualism we are taught to cherish. Therefore, the final villain being a hive mind is a rather obvious display of liberal values. It is
that's right.
also rather boring, given that it has no symbolic meaning for the central themes of the show, but we already know that Arcane Season 2 was a failure of television, so no need to talk about that.
Failure of television. Why am I watching this? Okay, no. I need to see something. Okay, 300,000 views, 20,000 likes. Oh. Oh. The argument that Arcane is centrist text advocating for balanced middle ground is a profound misreading. that makes the story tragic. Mechanics for its moralities in the show does not present oppressive order of zones, desperate chaos, morally equivalent. This is ridiculous. The TV show cannot be centrist or leftist or anything because it's a TV show. Okay, this guy is even more wrong, and I think we both agree. We both agree on that. We truly are too smart for shows or something. Oh yeah, now I remember. Why is Victor presented as the big bad? Because Sky that he sees is you know, the void. Yeah, it's the void. So yeah, I also, like, don't honestly think that Hiveman is really like kind of um you know what most modern leftists want. Like, if you asked, for example, Bernie Sanders, do you want everyone to live in a hive mind? He would say no. If you ask Starmer, he would say no. Damn, I don't know that much leftist leaders in the modern day. Generally, I don't know much leftist leaders. I know that Spain has social democrat government. Okay, I don't know why I'm saying that to you, alright? But like, if you ask modern leftist establishment about do you want to create a hive mind, they would say no. Maybe like Hakim, which is a YouTuber with like 2 million subscribers, would say yes because he's a communist. But like, not all leftists are communists. And that's also, like, I agree with Victor. I'm not going to say no, but like, I'm not going to say that I am all the left. Like, I don't know, she says that Marxists are everything that left is. Um, I know that most leftists would just disagree with what Victor does. Um, so still, and yes, I was actually for Victor. Later, I changed my mind after the ending of the show, when my mind was blown. But now I find myself just agreeing with Victor anyway. Yeah, so that kind of got off track. Um, all right. Also, because Victor was the void, and if he did it, everyone would just die. You know that, right? And like, they couldn't because they have like 5 more seasons to do.
that. Although I dislike Jace as a character, I don't actually have much to say about him for this video. By the end of the show, Jace is like the only character with a halfway decent arc, probably because he's Christian Link's self-insert. But anyway, since the centrism with Jace is not as strong, this section will be short, except for when I talk about that accursed episode, Season 2, Episode 8. We'll get there, though. Where the centrism shines most with Jace is that his own lack of a moral backbone, a key characteristic of most moderates, is never condemned by the show. Jace flip-flops all the time. It's one of his defining character traits at this point. He doesn't want Hex Tech weaponized, then he talks to Melon and Bessa and suddenly he's all for it and is ready to raid a Shimmer factory with Vi. Except oops, that ended with a dead child, and now Jace wants to wash his hands of his responsibility for that and all the other Zonite children that have died from the Council's inaction. After the Council attack, though, he's perfectly fine making Hextech weapons again, and more of them this time. If Arcane was truly committed to providing left-leaning commentary, Jace would be called out for his lack of a moral backbone and the way that he tries to wipe his hands clean of the horror that he and the rest of the council have allowed to fester in Zon.
Yeah, as I said, when Matt is a pacifist, it's good when it's for good reason, and when Jace does it for literally the same reason, it's a bad reason. Choose a side, woman. Oh, yes. She just said that most I mean centrist, lack moral backbone, which is kind of true. Like apoliticals definitely do. Um, yeah, I hate apoliticals. Changed my mind.
because of their neglect and prejudice, but he is not called out, not once. The only time he is remotely called out on anything is when he shows prejudice towards Zonites in Season 1, except in the end, both Victor and Vi pay only lip service to the idea that Jace's prejudice is wrong, and that's the end of it.
I love this. She just said, "Oh." She just says, "Oh, they actually made some leftist commentary, lip service. Oh, let's move on."
Jace receives no repercussions. The prejudice Jace exhibits is there for interpersonal tension, not political commentary.
Yeah, and then like later, Jace doesn't trust Zone Knights, wants Jinx, wants to disband Shimmer, like it comes to kill Zone Knights. Definitely, death.
In Season 2, Rennie, the mother of the boy that Jace killed in the Shimmer Factory, and a few chem tanks attack the memorial service for the dead counselors, a direct consequence of Jace killing Rennie's son. But this is never addressed, so instead of Arcane taking this opportunity to discuss the consequences of Jace's actions and his privilege in allowing to get away with them, instead we get a scene that is meant to further Caitlyn's arc, and Rennie and the chem tanks are simply framed as monsters to be killed rather than people.
Yeah, that's about right. No, you know what I mean. She will soon say that, oh, it's just about Noxus, but because yes, it's basically just about Noxus. And this is what kind of also gets Jace to making a hectic weapon.
This demonstrates the show's own prejudice towards Zonites like Rennie and those that engage in the Shimmer trade, since outside of Silco, where this is only barely discussed, Piltover's role in creating people like Rennie is not highlighted. Again, it is as if the show is trying to put Piltover and Zon on an equal playing field, despite the fact that it has already established that they are not on one at all. And then there is, of course, Season 2, Episode 8, where Jace gives the worst speech known to man, the speech that, along with Silco's speech in the same episode, wraps up all of Arcane's centrist politics in a nice, neat little bow for
No one cares.
us. How convenient. This speech, and Episode 8 and 9 in general, give us the trope of two enemies coming together to defeat a greater evil. And that can be a really great trope when the enemies aren't the oppressor and the oppressed. Because now, what
Oh my god. Like the fact that Zone also hard built over and that Zone mainly oppressed what was mainly oppressed by itself. Yes, I don't say that Piltover didn't do some bad things to Zone. I'm just saying that both sides are like equally bad.
the show is trying to tell us is the struggle
Well, yeah, Piltover technically started the conflict, but it's also not that because in lore, the conflict is really started because two cities are just different. Yeah, I still.
of the marginalized aren't important right now. We have bigger things to address. It's the same bullshit I've heard over and over again in certain organizing spaces. Oh, can you quiet down about anti-blackness? It's causing disunity and we're trying to fight against XYZ. Like, no, it's
That is not the case, though. This is very bad comparison.
your anti-blackness that's causing the disunity, just like how it's Piltover's treatment of Zon that not only is leaving them as a divided front against the final villains, but also it is what allowed those villains to be created in the first place. Like the bullshit killing is a cycle speech, Jace's speech places the burden on the marginalized, this time to make good with their oppressors so they can defeat a greater evil. Piltover sacrifices absolutely nothing in this, and yet Zahn is asked to put its own people on the line. His speech also uses the insulting
Piltover sacrifices absolutely nothing in this. Yeah. And what does Zone sacrifice? Well, the same thing as Piltover. But but it's Piltover's fault. No, not really. It's really just Noxus and Ten and Victor's fault. Hmm. What can I also find? Debunk him. Nothing because I'm just okay. I shouldn't. So you know, what was I? Oh right. Both cities would suffer in the case that Noxus or Victor would win, and they knew that. Unlike you, which kind of really shows that they are smarter than you, Stone Knights.
"we are all one people" kind of rhetoric, a rhetoric made more insulting when we know that Jace is someone who holds prejudicial attitudes towards Zonites. Jace's speech demonstrates why Arcane Season Two's focus on the arcane, the focus that everyone
Well, Echo also held prejudices towards Pultovans, but according to you, these are absolutely, you know, these are absolutely justified. Unlike the ones made by Piltover when, because Zonite just killed the police, destroyed their prison where probably a lot of actual criminals were, held. Um, what else? Oh, destroy the council, kill several councillors before his fucking eyes, made a terrorist attack where actual children were harmed and people were harmed, and streets were just flooded with the gray. Um, and according to her, this is all just justified because she just acts like some communist or socialist, Marxist, communist or socialist. So yeah, that's so stupid. No, sorry, revolutionary communist or socialist. All right, um, not Marxist, not all Marxist. I think want a revolution. I hope.
planes took up too much time, it's just a consequence of the show's centrism, not the cause of it. To execute its centrist message, the show needed this big bad for Piltover and Zahn to unite against. I wasn't going to give Heimerdinger his own section, I was just going to talk about him during Echoes, but I decided to discuss Heimerdinger separately because I think that he represents the show's centrism in a couple of different ways. Unlike almost every other character, other than Jace, I guess, Heimerdinger wasn't failed by the show's centrism other than not receiving the consequences he needed to. See, as I said earlier, Heimerdinger is deeply complicit in Zahn's oppression, given that he helped found Piltover and has been there ever since. And yet, the show tries to pass
But this is the problem that Piltover never oppressed. Like, really, the thing that Heimendinger has done is just ignore Zone's problems. And, like, this is not addressed. This is kind of bad. I agree. But, like, he later, I don't know, mm, undoes this by, the first thing he does after being kicked out of the council is to help Zononites, and then he actually does help Zononites and Firelights. So we kind of see that he was always kind of a chill guy. And then also in the alternate timeline, he probably also helped Zononites to make them more like rich, like Piltover. So it's kind of cool of him.
This off as Heimerdinger didn't know. When he gets booted off of the council, he goes to the Undercity, and that's when he hears of how bad things are down there. Considering he was head of the council, that is utter bullshit, and his apparent lack of knowledge is not cute or quirky, unlike what the show once.
Well, he could just not know what's happening there. Um, he never worked to the Undercity. This is quite heavily implied, and because you just imply things without ever giving an argument, without giving an argument, you know, to just justify what you say. Uh, I'm also going to do this. So Heimendinger, yeah, I just don't know what to say because the show doesn't really show that much.
Us to believe. This idea that those who engage in oppression are ignorant is a liberal one, by the
Doesn't engage in oppression. He never did. Because Piltover isn't oppressing zone. At least Heimendinger wasn't oppressing zone. It was Zone Knights. It was Silco, the Camberons. It was Marcus from Piltover, actually. Maybe Jace if you don't want to think about it. And the enforcers and stuff. But not Heimendinger. His greatest sin was ignorance. Really. Like, you know, um Caitlyn is a daughter of a counselor, and she also doesn't know what's happening in Zone. Does that speak something to you?
way. Somehow, Heimerdinger of all characters is the only Piltovian that actually tried to do anything to help Zahn, in theory. Personally, I believe that one of the reasons why Zahn had its happy
And maybe Grayson, if you know, probably Grayson. Grayson, I don't know really how to categorize that. Her. And Victor, but no, he's technically also a Zonamite, right? And Caitlyn in season one, and kind and you know act one of season two. Yes, I'm still going to say Gussing Zone was good actually. The show says it. But you're just going to say no, 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 it wasn't, despite show saying this is kind of like when as if she just denied that um, you know Darth Vader is Luke's father because it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't need to make sense. It's a story, all right. And for me, it kind of makes sense that they got Zone. Is for actually good of Zone.
ending in the season 2 episode 7 AU is because of Heimerdinger having those 3 years there, where he could have gotten the council to do more or just gone down to the Undercity himself. The show doesn't tell us any of this since, as
Wait, it was 3 years or was it a decade? I don't remember.
my friend Malvi always likes to say, Arcane season 2 is a show you imagine, not watch. And even if it is true that Heimerdinger was helping out Zahn in those 3 years, I hope the show isn't expecting me to think that 3 years is anywhere near enough to make up for 3 centuries of
I think that he was there for 10 years, and that it wasn't 3 centuries but 2 centuries. I know that I just actually, but like also we needed a time between these things to have disaster on the river Pilt, which would probably like be 100 years, or 150 years in like 10 years. So she just kind of.
simplicity, because it's not. But of course, if Arcane did actually intend for us to think that Heimerdinger was helping Zahn for 3 years, then they probably do think that he'd earned his redemption by then, which is why he dies helping Echo get back to the main universe. Y'all thought you'd get through this video without me highlighting even more of the other bullshit that was the final battle? Ha! Think again. No, because I have to talk about what is quite possibly the most insulting ending in all of Arcane, which is that of Gert, a side character with hardly any lines in Season 2. In season 2, we see that Gert is a jinxer, so one of Zahn's mini revolutionaries. She gets thrown into still water like many people at the episode 4 rally. We also see her in the season 2, episode 7 alternate timeline where she works at the last drop, showing that she is very involved in her community. And then, bullshit. At first, Gert is ready to get the hell out of town after talks of war, and she is rightfully angry when an enforcer touches her, an enforcer we're supposed to feel bad for based on the expression, which is just infuriating. Gert then changes her mind and goes to help Piltover when she sees an enforcer helping an old lady? I have interpretations
No, it's because she cares about her community and doesn't want all of them to die. You know what I mean? Or just get occupied by Noxus. Choose two of these things because she fought with Noxus for like a long time at this point. So even joining the Piltover to fight them. So I don't think this is really that disrespectful.
of this that at least attempt to be reasonable and not centrist, but I'm sure what the show had in mind was something like Gert sees that the enforcers and therefore Piltovians are people too, and so she should fight with them, or some bullshit like that. As if it is Gert's job as a member of the oppressed class to forgive and forget with her oppressors. Fuck that shit. But that's of course not the worst part of all this, because the next time we see Gert is after Vi carries her to relative safety in the middle of the war, and she dies while holding Vi's hand, while in enforcer uniform, the uniform of her oppressors. Gert, the revolutionary, died fighting for and in the uniform of her oppressors.
No, she died fighting for her community.
What the flim flam?
The fuck is this? Like, legitimately, what the fuck am I supposed to make of this? Shit like this is exactly why I hate liberals. In the end, how is this not the exploitation of Zonites taken a different form? Gert giving up the revolutionary struggle just to die for the people that have oppressed and enacted violence on her people for centuries.
No, she dies for Zod.
Are you fucking serious right now? What do they want us to get from this? What message are they trying to send? Because I can glean nothing positive from this whatsoever. But given that the show is indeed centrist, clearly what I'm getting is not what they wanted me to get. I believe that this is supposed to be an extension of the we're all one people fighting against a common enemy nonsense, and that's it. That's why Vi is the one to watch Gert die and is so affected by it, because she's shocked that another Zonite came to help the fight, since they of course wrote that out of character liberal bullshit about Vi for some reason being mad that Jinx wouldn't help with the fight. It's supposed to be an emotional moment showing that all these people came together. It's a moment of tragic unity. And the moment is tragic, but not for any of these reasons. To me, I watched this scene and I'm devastated that this kind-hearted woman died for her oppressors. I'm devastated that Vi has to watch another
She didn't die for her oppressors. She died for Zon. Get that to your fucking school.
one of her people die right in front of her after Gert reached out for her, the fellow Zonite who tried to save her. If the show hadn't ended by severing all of Vi's ties to Zon, this moment could have easily acted as the wake-up call that season 2 Vi needed to get her head out of her ass and get the fuck out of Piltover when season 2 ended, because to me, it symbolizes a moment between two Zonites who realize they are expendable to Piltover. But of course,
Why? Why are you doing this?
the show intended absolutely none of this. Unfortunately for Arcane, leftists just write better stories.
I think it's time for the best part.
One of the most interesting things about Arcane's second season has less to do with the show and rather with what the content of the season revealed about its own fanbase. In having its centrism laid bare, Arcane's second season revealed the centrism and even conservatism of its fanbase. There is a reason why someone tweeted that Arcane Season 2 has done more for the right than Trump.
Okay, I will probably wake up grandma with my screaming. I just I'm just scared. Sorry. you know, I'm always laughing when I hear somebody say just bullshit like that. But like, I also feel dying inside because people really think that shit. Like when I listen to right wingers, I sometimes laugh, sometimes cry, sometimes I am silent. And this is the same. I sometimes cry, sometimes I'm silent, and sometimes I just laugh at the absurdity of this. I know that this is probably like not meant to be taken seriously.
Never before have I wanted to say, "Do you fucking hear yourself?" with such a high frequency as I have since Arcane Season 2 premiered. This section of the video is going to be highlighting some of the absolutely ridiculous and absurd bullshit rhetoric I've come across in the Arcane fandom, specifically on Twitter, in the last few months. Given that all of these tweets were made on public accounts, I've decided not to blur out usernames, but I'd like to make it clear that those viewing should not go harass these users. I'm bringing these tweets up to talk
Okay, I think I'm going to end it right now because everybody knows that conservatives love gay marriage. Um, okay, goodbye.